talking about bad arguments for supporting Labor's voice to Parliament. I just read the very worst argument of all, and the funniest. It's from Professor Bruce Pascoe, author of the best-selling book Dark Emu, who has now written an article defending the voice for the far-left website Crikey, which would be ashamed of itself. And Crikey sells the article like this: society used to respect experts. Bruce Pascoe on the voice, treaty and sovereignty. The Ewan Bunurong and Tasmanian writer, Tasmanian Aboriginal I mean, says we need to listen to experts like voice architect Megan Davis, not the arguments of the huckster. Huckster? I mean, don't listen to hucksters, says this white fake who falsely claims to belong to 3 Aboriginal tribes when he actually doesn't have one single Aboriginal ancestor listed in his genealogy. And as I would ask, who is the huckster here? Joining me are Sky News presenter James McPherson of The Late Debate, here on Sky at 10 p.m, and Sky News contributor Daisy Cousens, who also has her own YouTube channel. Look, thank you to you both for coming. James, you used to be a pastor. Let me start with this. Before the break, I talked to that Christian historian, Steve Trevura, who's saying that churches are wrong to back the voice. Did you agree with him?
Yeah, I thought he spoke very clearly and was quite brilliant. The trouble for Christians is the promise of reconciliation, and immediately Christians lean in because, of course, as Stephen described earlier, reconciliation is a Bible concept, that we are reconciled to God and we're to reconcile others to God. So the moment Christians hear reconciliation, we immediately think, oh, this is a good thing, but that's about the extent of the thinking. Andrew, I was at a church some months ago, and they had an Indigenous leader talking about this issue, and he said to the congregation, we need to support this because it's about reconciliation. Reconciliation is a Bible word, therefore we need to be on board. And everybody applauded. It was the comfort of opinion without the discomfort of thought. No conversation as to what does reconciliation mean in this instance? Is it possible? Is it possible without forgiveness? And as you pointed out just earlier, is it possible to reconcile people by dividing them according to race? And so it's a bit like the same-sex marriage debate, where many Christians supported it because we were told it's all about love. And Christians said, well, God is love, and if it's the debate is about love, then we should support that. And so I think Christians need to think a bit more deeply about these things rather than just grabbing onto words and saying, well, we're familiar with that word, therefore we should support the issue.
But I'm just struck, Daisy, by how distorted the debate is. Let me choose a polite word, particularly from the media left. Particularly when it comes to race politics as well. You know, that's one issue where it doesn't seem to be able to tell things as they are. That Crikey can still refer to Bruce Pascoe as an Aborigine and blast hucksters against the voice. How can anyone trust anything else that Crikey says on this issue of the voice when it sells Pascoe as an Aborigine?
Look, it's a pretty extraordinary thing, isn't it? And it was a pretty extraordinary article. I mean, if Bruce Pascoe wanted to sort of put himself up as the poster boy for the proverbial establishment, well, he succeeded. There's a whole lot of stuff in there about denigrating populism and how terrible populist politicians are. And I'm sorry, well, for last I checked, populism was for the people. I mean, what's wrong with populism? It was an extraordinary article, Andrew. But yes, they can still claim that now. I'm sorry, I think it just shows a real lack of courage, aside from anything else. There's this weird sort of Descartes-like perception on the left. It's like, you know, I think, therefore I am, and we see it with everything, obviously with gender, but certainly with race here. And as for Bruce Pascoe, I mean, you know it better than anyone, but I'll refer us to what the Aboriginal Land Council of Tasmania said to The Australian in 2020. They said it does not believe he has Indigenous ancestry and that his claims to Indigenous heritage have been rejected by Aboriginal people in 3 states. So maybe Crikey should do a little bit more backgrounding before it says these things.
I know. How can you trust them to say anything correct on the voice if they can't even spot that this white guy in front of them isn't Aboriginal? I mean, it's just so plain to me. And what does it say? There's no test for Aboriginality for people going on The Voice. That's going to be really interesting. Can you imagine Bruce Pascoe on The Voice? James, something Daisy raised drew my attention to, but let me give you the first bite at it. Until now, King Charles, he has kept his word, I praise him for it, to stop being an activist now that he's king, stop playing politics. That seems now to have ended. Now, the king yesterday helped London's Lord Mayor launch a doomsday clock warning that we only have 6 years and 24 days, 23 now, to save ourselves from terrible global warming. Okay, he was a bit standoffish. He didn't actually push the clock himself. He left the mayor to do that, but he was there. He was drawing attention to it. Is this too much?
Well, I mean, the first problem King Charles has got is that in 2009, he said we had, 8 years left? And then he reappraised that 6 years later and said we've got another 35 years left. And now here he is saying we've got 6 years and 24 days left. So he keeps changing his mind. But the big problem for King Charles is that politicians are increasingly imposing authoritarian restrictions on the population. They're making us less free. They're making us less prosperous. And so here we've got a king associating himself with the impoverishment of the population. We're socially poorer, we're economically poorer. The second problem King Charles has got is that the environmental movement has been overtaken by socialists, by Marxists. Well, they are not his friends. They are anti-capitalism, they're anti-Western civilization, they're anti-freedoms. And so after they've used King Charles up, they'll be coming for him.
What do you make of it, Daisy? I think he's broken his word.
I'm really disappointed, Andrew, to be honest with you. And I agree with you. It is like he's broken his word. I mean, I really, I have such high hopes for King Charles as king. I think he had the most perfect mentor, obviously, in his mother, Queen Elizabeth II. He had such potential. And right up to in the period before the coronation, it seemed like he really was sticking to his word. He put the activism behind him. He was being absolutely wonderful. But now it's like the coronation has happened. He's crowned, and straight off the blocks, he's doing this incredibly political thing when he absolutely must be remaining apolitical. And the thing is, Andrew, people will argue, and I've had it argued to me, climate change isn't political. Yes, it is political for two reasons.
Deeply.
One, because there's a lot of policy involved that it greatly affects people's lives that they vote on. And two, it's used, as we know, by many powerful people to push through political agendas, whether it's global socialism or the World Economic Forum and their Great Reset, or even Jim Chalmers with his values-based capitalism. It is political. This is disappointing, and I'm really hoping, Andrew, that the post-coronation Charles is not going to be the norm. Let's go back to the pre-coronation King Charles,
gosh.
Please.
We shall see. I think he got encouraged when his horse won at Royal Ascot. James, there are actually two issues today where the left feels excused telling untruths and bullying people. One is race politics, as we've discussed. The other is global warming. In Britain, as in Australia, global warming protests, they seem to feel entitled to block traffic. Police don't move them. They disrupted the World Snooker Championship by jumping on tables, throwing orange powder around. But when two more global warming activists tried to do the same thing at their pitch at Lord's at the second test last night against Australia, the players, including David Warner, took them on, never mind the police, took them on to protect the wicket. England wicketkeeper Johnny Bairstow, very impressive, carried one of the protesters all the way back to the boundary. The thing is, these protests really do invite now a physical retaliation, don't they?
Yeah, and we're increasingly seeing that. I mean, the Just Stop Oil protests, particularly in the UK now, you regularly can watch videos of those protests where you've got motorists getting out of their vehicles and physically removing by the scruff of the neck protesters from the roads. And if you read the comments on those videos online, overwhelmingly people are very supportive of motorists and passers-by becoming physical with these protesters. I saw one video, Andrew, where the protesters, they're blocking the road and they're on their mobile phones calling for help from the police to protect them from angered motorists. The problem here is that the courts are not...
This is the thing, they think the police will stop them from getting moved. But we've seen that in Australia a little bit too, Daisy. I mean, but the arrogance of these global warming protests, you've seen them on streets here, you've seen last week around our ports as well, they feel entitled to bully and stop people. And it seems to me it's an excuse for bullying. People are enjoying the crisis because they can act like bullies.
Well, exactly. And this kind of activism, Andrew, I mean, it's so fake, because the thing about these types of protests is nobody actually likes them. They have a very, very small amount of support. The public doesn't like them because they're annoying. So they're not actually doing anything to advance their cause or to generate sympathy for their cause. If anything, they're doing the opposite. They must know that, surely, by the public reaction. So why are they doing it, Andrew? As you say, it gives them a chance to bully. It gives them a purpose, because perhaps their lives are very purposeless. It gives them something to do. I just think perhaps they should get a hobby and a job rather than being detrimental to their cause in such an aggressive, stupid way.
Daisy, good point. Sorry to rush you up. Got to go. That's it from us. Daisy Cousens, James the First, thank you.